Hey folks, I was recently asked by an international friend to explain the nature of South African politics, and I thought it might be a useful thing to do for those of you who do not live here and do not have an understanding of how things work. This country's political landscape is dominated by three main parties: the African National Congress, or ANC, the Democratic Alliance, or DA, and the Economic Freedom Fighters, or EFF for short. The ANC is widely acknowledged as a liberation movement, as it played a pivotal role in bringing to an end the legally mandated system of racial discrimination known as apartheid. It was also the party of South Africa's most prominent and renowned political figure, Nelson Mandela. The ANC has held power here since apartheid fell in 1994, and its political platform is heavily focused on the idea of legacy and the struggle for freedom. The tenets by which it currently operates are moderately socialist in general, with some openly communist ideas thrown into the mix. The great irony, though, is that over the years, the ANC's leadership has begun to very closely resemble the capitalist elites that they claim to stand against. It is on their watch that criminality, fraud, and corruption have become a way of life in this country. By contrast, the Democratic Alliance is the party that adheres most closely to Western democratic values, and for this reason, it is seen as the party of the white man. One of the ways in which the ANC has been able to retain power despite being wholly ineffective at leadership is a campaign of sustained fear-mongering in which they claim that if they were ever to lose power to the DA, apartheid would be reinstated. None of this is true, however, as the DA can boast support from a wide range of South Africa's racial groups, and in fact, the areas which it controls are some of the best run in South Africa. Reality is often rendered irrelevant, though, because a large portion of the South African voter base is uneducated and superstitious. So what the ANC regularly does is promote the idea that the ancestors of the people would be angry with them if they no longer voted for the party that gave them their freedom. To those among us who are Christian, former President Jacob Zuma is infamous for having stated on more than one occasion that the ANC would rule South Africa until the return of Christ. The DA's platform is in general far more rational and based on the objectives of growing South Africa's economy and allowing the maximum amount of personal freedom and prosperity possible to all South Africans. Bearing that in mind, my faith in them is far from complete, because current DA leader Mmusi Maimane has in the past spoken of the need to confront white privilege, and when politicians start to talk about white privilege, I become very wary indeed. Allow me to be very clear about this. My misgivings do not arise from the belief that there are no privileged whites in South Africa, as to claim that would be ridiculous. I take issue with the use of the term white privilege because in its current incarnation, it is too often used to silence people and lay guilt where it might not actually belong. I believe that the economic and social structure of South Africa is very complex and should be looked at with proper nuance. And now we come to the economic freedom fighters, which is the youngest and most extreme of the three political parties. Under its leader, Julius Malema, the EFF is a radically Marxist organization with no qualms about calling for violence to achieve its political aims. Malema is widely known for his use of violent rhetoric, such as singing a song by the title of Shoot the Boer, which is a direct call to act violently against white Afrikaans farmers, because as far as the EFF is concerned, the white farmer is the oppressor in our society. He has also spoken openly in the press about, quote, cutting the throat of whiteness, unquote. And were the EFF ever to be elected as the ruling party of South Africa, he would most certainly seek to nationalize all land, banks, and public institutions. In fact, the radical redistribution of land and wealth is such a large part of the EFF's political platform that some have theorized that the African National Congress only entered into talks about doing it in order to rob the EFF of their thunder. The economic freedom fighters are without doubt the most openly violent political faction in this country, but Julius Malema is immensely popular among the nation's poor because he promises to give them everything they could ever dream of having. Like so many Marxists who came before him though, Julius Malema is a blatant hypocrite. During the week and in Parliament, he will wear the uniform of a worker, but on the weekends he can be spotted in some of the country's most fancy restaurants wearing suits and watches that look like they would take me a year to afford. A pertinent fact about Julius Malema is that he was once a prominent figure within the African National Congress, but formed his own party after a very public falling out with former President Jacob Zuma. In order to truly understand South African politics, one must understand that the social is often indistinguishable from the political. South African society is frequently divided along tribal lines, and between the various ethnic tribes of this country, there are blood feuds that go back for several generations. So when someone chooses to align with a particular political party, there is more at stake than just that party's policy. One is also expected to properly represent and honor their tribal heritage. Furthermore, if you spend any length of time paying attention to South African politics, you could be forgiven for thinking that it is more akin to the realm of the Italian mafia than a modern discourse of leadership. Infighting among members of the same party is a fairly common occurrence, and the ANC in particular is well known for members ordering hits on one another to secure their own political aims. Much of what I have said today will no doubt shock outsiders to hear. However, I have done my best to represent the situation with as much truthfulness and integrity as I could. Also remember that I have lived in South Africa all my life, so this stuff doesn't particularly shock me as a local. Don't forget, if you enjoy my content, you can support me on a monthly basis via Patreon or give me a once-off contribution via PayPal. For now, farewell.